We're back now with Conversation Nation. Joining me tonight, Mike.com's Liz Plank, HuffPost Live's host Josh Zepps, and the griot, Zerlina Maxwell. Thanks for being here tonight.
Pleasure.
Let's start with President Obama using the bully pulpit. The irony here, he came into office as the president wanting to compromise and get along. But now he's showing force, almost daring Republicans to fight him. Is the confrontational politics a good call, or should he have waited? Liz, what do you think?
I mean, I don't really view this as confrontation. I don't think it's a power grab. It's a lawful move, and it doesn't come without precedent. We've seen actually over the course of the last 60 years, 11 presidents do this 39 times, take executive action over immigration. And so I think most Americans are just happy that he's getting stuff done.
I mean, there's certainly nothing illegal about it, and there's nothing outrageous about it, and there's nothing that he should be impeached for, certainly. But if you ever wanted there to be an opportunity to perhaps reach across the aisle and get anything bipartisan done in the final 2 years of his presidency, that is now completely defunct. There is no chance that well, we don't know. We just don't know, do we? Now we will never know.
Zerlina, maybe that's why it appears confrontational, because they're so inflexible on the other side.
Right. I mean, I think part of the problem here is that we don't realize that he did wait. He waited a very long time, and he said to John Boehner, pass the Senate bill, and he refused to do so. And that's why we're in this moment, not because President Obama is overreaching or is an imperial president. He is prioritizing people and families and not politicizing them like the Republicans are.
But do you think, Liz, that maybe they didn't think he would at some point stand up to them? I mean, since he did try so hard to work this bipartisan, we're all one America, let's come together. Do you think they underestimated that at some point he was going to say, well, wait a minute, I've got to move forward on behalf of the things that Americans need?
Completely. And I think, you know, the Republican Party has played on the idea that this is bad for the economy too, right? And I think a lot of people have realized when you look at the numbers, this is actually going to bring more jobs and also more taxpayers. The numbers are $3 billion in payroll taxes revenue in the first year alone of this executive action, and it's going to be $23 billion. That's just the first year, and $23 billion over 5 years. And so I think voters are going to be convinced that this was the right thing to do.
So I guess there's a political question and there's also a policy question, right? The political question for me is, if you want Obama to be perceived as the most successful possible president that he could be, then I would have left open a door to the possibility of having some kind of a deal with Republicans, either on trade negotiation authority or potentially on immigration, potentially on tax reform. That's all now defunct. Then on the actual policy question, you have to look at the fact of we're allowing the parents now of people who came here, who are here legally, but the parents who came here illegally, for me,
a really difficult process in order to become legal.
Well, for me, look, there are a lot of people in Burma, there are a lot of people in Africa, there are a lot of people all over the world who want to come to the United States. And I totally understand the dreamer argument. These are kids who came here through no fault of their own. But the parents' argument, you know how many loops I have to jump through as an Australian to be able to work here legally? It's tough.
I understand that, but I think that this is a family values argument, because we're talking about
and it's not like they can just walk down and sign up and say they're kids. But let's move on to that Republican lawsuit. As we mentioned, Speaker Boehner filed the suit against President Obama over the Affordable Care Act today, accusing him of, quote, unconstitutional and unlawful actions, and claiming his administration had, quote, abused its power. But over the summer, when the lawsuit was first announced, a majority of Americans didn't want it filed. Zerlina, will this backfire on the GOP?
Well, I don't know that it'll backfire, because clearly talking about the lawsuit before the midterms didn't actually impact that result. But I do think that the Republicans are really on shaky ground here, because they have they could tomorrow pass an immigration bill because the Senate has already passed one. So I think they need to get serious. Now that they're in charge, they actually have to do things to advance an agenda that, that helps the American people. And at this point, they have not done that. And now they have the responsibility to govern, and they have to do it.
Josh?
I think Boehner is terrified. I think he's terrified of his right flank. I think he is terrified. No, I think he is terrified that the Republican Party is going to impeach Obama.
Right flank, i.e. Tea Party caucus.
Tea Party, Ted Cruz caucus, exactly. I think that he wants to do this. He wants to be seen by his right flank, by his Tea Party caucus, as being the kind of guy who's getting tough on Obama, because he's terrified of the possibility of his party driving itself off the cliff and becoming unelectable in 2016. He's talking tough because he wants to look like he's talking tough, but it ain't going anywhere.
Yeah.
Liz?
I mean, it's almost like they want to stay relevant in the worst way possible.
Right.
So yeah, this lawsuit, as you mentioned, is very unpopular. Obamacare is very popular.
Isn't it interesting, though? Usually in the last 2 years of a two-term president, he's irrelevant.
Right.
You
Right.
said that they want to try to be relevant. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, but they're doing it by being opposed to something. We don't actually know what they're standing for. And again, I don't think that's what voters want. That's not what Americans want to hear.
And we know that there are no grounds for this lawsuit. I mean, there are absolutely no grounds whatsoever.
Right.
The executive
Which is why
clearly
they
has
haven't
the
filed it.
constitutional authority to allocate resources where it wants to allocate them. We don't send cops out to every college dorm investigating whether or not there's weed being smoked, because that would be a useless thing to do. And we don't deport every single human being in America.
I'm going to have to hold it there for a second, but everyone, please stay with me. When we come back, it's President Obama and his BlackBerry. Next.